be ready.
Okay, we're live.
Welcome to this panel, which is entitled The Impact of COVID-19 Resources for Small and Micro Businesses. I'm Will Lucas, and I have the pleasure of serving as your moderator for this evening. I'm going to be talking about a few things, so particularly with regards to Black American businesses, small businesses, and we're taking a disproportionate hit economically and physically from the pandemic. And there's been a whole lot of confusion regarding available resources for small business. So as many of us can appreciate, even before the pandemic, Black businesses were already under pressure, regarding, lack of capital and resources being underfunded, resources to be able to innovate and be able to keep up with the times. And COVID-19 has only amplified a lot of that stress. So this session tonight will discuss local resources that can assist small businesses, as well as plans for Toledo's small business recovery effort. Before I introduce our panel tonight of distinguished guests, I do want to walk through a couple slides, if we can get those up, on latest stats for how we've been impacted in this community. So if you could please launch those slides on the screen, I would appreciate it. So here in Lucas County, the case count by race, we have had 597 white Caucasian folks impacted by coronavirus, 550 Black people, 60 other, and 333 with their race unreported. Next slide, please. Lucas County cases count by ethnicity, 874 non-Hispanic Latino, 55 Hispanic Latino, and 611 unreported. Next slide. The death count by race, 105 white Caucasian, 32 Black, 4 other, and 8 reported. Next. And that's it. So as everybody can appreciate, this whole pandemic has taken a toll in many ways on our lives, whether it be our home life. And, for everybody, you can appreciate, like, home isn't necessarily home for everybody. Some places, in some instances, home can be a very uncomfortable place to be. So we have to be very cognizant that not everybody is living under the perfect conditions of being able to work from home freely, living under, calm ecosystems at home. And so we just want to be very cognizant that not everybody is as privileged as some of us might be, and be respectful and thoughtful of those folks while we have these discussions, and do what we can and look out for each other. This is a moment to look out for each other and reestablish community as best we can. So I want to introduce our guest for tonight. I'm going to introduce Kala Gibson, who is the Executive Vice President, Head of Business Banking at Fifth Third Bank. I'm going to do my best to shorten these folks' bios because all of them are quite accomplished. Kala oversees the strategic planning, operations, sales force, and products for the division of business banking at Fifth Third Bank. And he serves clients with annual revenues up to $20 million across 1,100 banking centers in 10 states. Jeff Johnson, my friend, Chief of Minority Business Development Division of the Ohio Development Services Agency. He's responsible for leading the state's efforts to develop and grow Ohio minority businesses. He's previously Vice President of Government and Nonprofit Lending at JP Morgan Chase, where he provided expertise on municipal bond underwriting and analysis. And Bria Mikolajczyk, my friend again, another friend, is a real estate developer. I've known Aunt Bria for goodness, like 20 years or more. So it's a pleasure to know you and see what you've been accomplishing in this community. A real estate developer, property manager, owner of art restoration and construction, which she co-owns with her husband, Kevin. Shout out to Kevin. She's a motivational speaker and a mother of 4. She recently left corporate America after 15 years as a pharmaceutical sales business manager to start her own thing. So I celebrate that. You're also a board member at the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce, Warehouse District, Mosaic Ministries, and the UT Alumni association. So welcome, Ambria. Oh, and you won 20 under 40 last year. So let's give you respect for that.
Oh, thank you.
And my guy, Craig Teamer, who is manager of finance and special projects for the Toledo-Lucas County Port Authority, worked in corporate finance and banking for nearly 20 years. And most recently worked as a senior treasury analyst for the Andersons. Also a 20 under 40 leadership award winner in 2014, co-chair of the African American Leadership Council at United Way, and a board member on a whole bunch of things, including like Toledo Excel, University of Toledo, Toledo Joint Committee of Toledo Excel, and Springfield Schools Foundation. Also on the Alumni Association for the Rockets also. So welcome all of you guys. I've been really interested in having this conversation in public that Jeff and I have had privacy. So Jeff, I would love to get your input on this because you sent me a report a couple of years ago that came out by the Small Business Administration, and it reported that almost 60% of all African-American businesses in the country are in the 20 lowest sales generating industries. So what does that mean? So that means we're starting businesses in the industries that have the least amount of gross receipts annually. So I'm talking about personal care services, home health care services, landscaping, even dry cleaning and the like. And so when you think about the types of businesses we've been creating, and I celebrate all entrepreneurship, so let's start there. But when you think about the types of the businesses that we've been creating in the industries that we're creating them in, talk about the economic impact that coronavirus and COVID-19 has had on these industries that were already perhaps undercapitalized and generating lower sales receipts.
Well, one, thank you for the intro. That study hit home with me because it talked about businesses that we are all familiar with, that minority business owners kind of run. And it put that majority in the bottom 20 industries of business. And when you look at that, those businesses typically struggle with sustainability because they don't create a lot of jobs. And they're typically geared more towards either lifestyle or just above that. So when you get hit with coronavirus and your business has to shut down, it's tough to sustain yourself because you're not generating enough cash to keep on hand. One of the things that's always been a metric for me as an institutional investor, and we do it when we look at our loans for my division, is days cash on hand. And typically when you think about you're pretty golden at 90 days, that gives you 3 months. Most of those businesses are less than 30 to 20 days cash on hand. So all it takes is a disrupt like this, and you're struggling to make things work in less than a month. So that's why this is so detrimental to a lot of those business owners.
And Ambria, you know, when you think about the industries that we create businesses in, we just typically go open a bank account at any bank, you know, not necessarily thinking about why we're opening a bank account at a specific bank. Can you talk about the importance of that banking relationship and what it means, what it could mean for the success of your enterprise?
So thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for joining. Great question, Will. I think that it is incredibly important to have strong banking relationships. We've all heard the statistic where a lot of minority business were shut out of the PPP and they just didn't get in time. And that was because they didn't have great banking relationships. Not only is it important for you to know your teller, but you have to go deeper than that. Do you guys know your banking manager name, your branch manager name? Do you know the execs at that bank? You know, do you have conversations with them? Do you sit down and talk to them about your business plan and how you want to grow and how you can leverage their capital in order to get there? And so it's not banking relationships on the surface. It goes much deeper than that. I can tell you that I've utilized all resources available to me. I went down to Columbus and talked to Jeff and his team and was able to get a bond that I needed, a surety bond that I needed to propel my business forward. And so I've never been afraid to talk to everyone that I need to talk to, and I'm not afraid to share my goals of the business. But I think you cannot discount having those strong banking relationships.
Kalal, when you look at the businesses who do come to, banks, and Bria just talked to it, having your stuff together and not being afraid to share, our information. Can you talk about a little bit of the historical perspective and what is it that is most detrimental to us when we do approach a bank and being able to find success that we've, tripped over so many times before?
Yeah, I think there's been so many historical and systemic things that actually caused the problem that we're in today when it comes to African-American owned businesses and their relationship with banks. So one of the slides that I have in here, it actually just spells out that most African-American owned businesses don't really borrow from banks, when compared to white entrepreneurs. I mean, it's a huge difference. And then when you think about as you get further into the channel, right, and using credit cards or any type of lines of credit, you can see on this slide that it's a significant difference. And that's primarily due to the fear of being rejected. We've seen this historically from a redlining perspective where a lot of African-American owned businesses or African-American people, period, were uncomfortable actually going to banks. So they haven't developed, to Ambria's point, the type of relationship that you have to have. One of the things that I've recommended folks do is that you need to have multiple relationships, right? So I have a lot of friends who are proud to say that they're with Fifth Third Bank or they're with Chase or you name the bank. And I always instruct them to make sure that you have multiple relationships. And the relationships, to Ambria's point as well, it can't just be with the teller. It needs to be with the executives. They need to have a relationship manager because again, with PPP, what we saw was that the individuals that had the relationships with banks or people at the bank were able to actually get in first, get in fast. Their information was ready, they were prepped, all of those different things, right? So one of the things that I believe we have to do, and this crisis is that example, is to continue to push around policies and things that kind of help push this money into the hands of African-American businesses through banks, but have the policies that they have that comfort level to go and build those relationships.
So yeah, back to Ambria. So let's say I'm a business owner. I've got $2,500, $10,000 in the bank, or et cetera, and I'm listening to this conversation. I'm hearing you say, have a relationship with your banker. What do I do? Like, what does that mean? I go and ask to speak to the manager next time I go. Like, what does that mean tactically?
So you go to your teller, right? And you say, is the branch manager here? I'd like for you to introduce me. And typically they're so happy to do so. Yeah, they're right here. Or can I schedule an appointment with you? I'll give you her email address or his phone number. And then from there, you have a meeting and you just introduce yourself. It's as simple as having a conversation. Let them know, really look at your banking institution as your partner in your business that can ensure your growth. And so just to have a conversation, tell them about your business plan, what you do, your background, why you're passionate about the business that you've started, and they can ultimately help you reach your goal. To Kalal's point, you have to have multiple banking relationships. It just doesn't start there because you do have that fear of being rejected. What if you go to your one institution and they say no? It's okay to go to the next institution because just because that first institution told you no, that doesn't mean that the other bank you may go to won't say yes. And so I would say be relentless. I have relationships with all of the community banking institutions around here locally. I walk in, I know branch managers, I've got cell phone numbers, I know about their families. It's all about the relationship and cultivating that and having them believe in you and your business so that when things come along like this, PPP, or you have an opportunity to buy a building or a piece of equipment or whatever it might be, you already have that relationship in place. They already know who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, and they want to be your partner in helping you reach your goals.
And so, Craig, when you think about, or when the community thinks about the Port Authority, most folks don't realize that the Port Authority is not just about ships and, property. But can you describe, as we're talking about this thing of, finding resources to be able to capitalize businesses, can you describe the Port Authority's role in economic development and helping small businesses bridge the gap between sometimes idea and execution or growth, stage? Can you talk about that?
Sure. Once again, thanks for having me. It's good to be on a panel. Got some other bankers on, an ex-banker myself, so all good information out there. As it relates to the Port Authority, as you mentioned, a lot of folks think of the Port Authority as managing the airport, managing the seaport, managing rail assets. Probably was not until the late 80s where we really got into economic development from a, I guess, financial support perspective, right? And it might be, I think, Sarah, if you pull up slide 5, it'll have some of the programs that we have. We start from a municipal bond fund, which helps out some of the bigger companies in the area. Yeah, the next slide, I think, there we go. So we've got a municipal bond fund. We've got SBA 504, Ohio 166, which are probably geared more towards smaller businesses. We've got two that I really want to highlight. One's our Diversified Contractor Accelerator Program, which is commonly known as DCAP, which provides working capital to minority and women-owned contractors. It's essentially a $600,000 revolving loan fund. And I think the theme that you will hear during this whole conversation is access to capital, right? And so the DCAP program was created to provide access to capital to those contractors to allow them to participate on projects. Some of these contractors don't have established relationships with the bank, so they can't go in and they can't go and get loans or lines of credit. So the Port Authority's kind of stepped into that gap to provide that. The second one is our partnership we have with ECDI, which is our microlender. We'll talk, and kudos to the city for their announcement today. But once again, this is an access to capital where the Port Authority has partnered with ECDI, which is kind of the largest microlender in the state of Ohio. Here in Northwest Ohio, we kind of serve as the face to provide access to capital for loans. Could be as small as $500 up to $350,000. So once again, the Port Authority is trying to serve in the gap of providing access to capital. And I think one other program we have something called a development loan fund, where we are partnering with certain municipalities that they can put together joint economic development zones or other tax income receipts, gather them and be able to disperse out to certain communities. So once again, Port Authority has a broad array of economic powers. That's one way for us to help out the communities to make sure that certain businesses are being able to get access to capital.
And Craig, sticking with you, like, and Bria specifically mentioned this, and Kalad touched on it as well. Like, you know, when you are coming to a bank particularly, or you're trying to get money from somebody, one of the fears we've traditionally had in our community is, you know, showing people our stuff. You know, we may not be all together. We might be using the credit card to go to lunch, you know, to buy kids shoes, the business credit card in that way. So what can you do to, you know, kind of dispel the fear or prepare people for coming to you or to a bank? And I'm happy to have Kalau and anybody else chime in, but I'd like to start with you, Craig. Is what kind of assistance, how can you reassure people that you're walking hand in hand with them to be able to get them across the finish line successfully?
A lot of it is making sure, when I deal with people, is making sure that you are not setting up for failure. So I want to make sure that they are aware of all the free resources, especially in the city of Toledo, to help them. And a lot of it is, hey, I have an idea for a business. And so my next question is, do you have a business plan? And the answer is no. All right, first step, here are, and I'll give them a litany of 4 or 5 resources, whether it's the Minority Business Assistance Center, whether it's the Small Business Development Center, whether it's Assets Toledo, I mean, the library. So the first thing is trying to plug them up with resources. I think psychologically, that's a big hump to get over, you know, for folks of color. Walking into a bank, walking into some institution may be somewhat intimidating. I think our goal and my goal, and I think some of the other ones will jump in, is getting folks comfortable with making sure that they are all together. And so I think the business plan is one. And then secondly, and this echoes through connections with financial institutions, don't be afraid to talk to a banker. So I'll say, hey, here are 3 bankers and that I may know personally. And so I'm not concerned with these people going and being treated a certain way. I feel comfortable that I have a relationship with these bankers that I know that they will walk through and help these people out. Once again, making sure that they are set up to succeed by giving them the proper resources And also having an open door policy. I tell everybody, if you got any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. I'll do anything I can to help you.
You know, and Jeff, like your job is to help get people, you know, across that finish line. And it's not that you have like a stake in it or anything. You know, it's you know, when you think about, I've had entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs come up and look for or ask me questions on, you know, how do they fund their enterprise. But I'm interested, Jeff, you know, because folks have said, you know, is there grants available to be able to get my thing started, because they may be afraid of taking a loan, or they may not be sure they can get approved for it. Or, but so can you talk about like the landscape of funding avenues to be able to not only inject fuel to get something started, but to be able to help an enterprise thrive?
I think a lot of the comments have been spot on, whether it relates to the PPP and getting access to those funds, the importance of having a banking relationship. The thing we tell our business partners around the state is you need to establish that relationship before you need it. Build that trust. I'll tell you an anecdotal story about a business partner we had down in Dayton. He came to us in all of our centers. Our technical assistance, business planning is all for free. A lot of people don't realize that, so you don't have to pay someone to do it. But he'd been working with Alan McConnell, who was on my staff, and Alan had done a great job while he was on board, taking our business partners to banks to have meetings, so that one, the bank could understand what the business owner was trying to do, and two, the business owner could understand what the bank required. And that was part of building that relationship. And this particular business owner, he came to our board approval because we had just approved him for a loan, and he went back 3 years. He said, Alan took me to this bank to start establishing relationships. And he said, honestly, the banker handed me my hat. He basically told me what I need to do, and I walked out of there thinking I'd never do it. He said, but I did everything he told me to do over the next 3 years. And I'm here now to get approved for a $150,000 loan. And if it weren't for that in the beginning, we wouldn't be here. So getting over that fear, that trepidation is going to be key, but it also helps to have somebody next to you that can vouch for you and alleviate some of that anxiety. In terms of resources, everybody wants grants. In this current political environment, there aren't a lot of grants around. It took this pandemic for people to start moving in that direction. So it's really, really difficult. But the thing that we tell our partners when they come to us to underwrite a loan or to get a surety bond or to help when we help them get lines of credit, it has to underwrite. At the end of the day, the insecurity about sharing your information, the insecurity about maybe not getting approved, that's just part of the gig. And you have to understand that it has to underwrite. It has to make sense. And we're just very honest. We can have that difficult conversation as well as a good conversation. We can't be afraid to do that. More importantly, the business owner has to be willing to receive it.
Yeah, I love that. And Bree, I'm going to ask you to chime in on this because you know you alluded to this a minute ago, but there's a comment that came in from Sonia who said we also need to educate on the importance of having good credit scores as well as investing money to save. And how I want to frame this is kind of like, don't do your best to not put yourself out of the game before somebody else puts you out. I remember being in a corporate environment, and I had the power to get some folks in, you know, some Black businesses who otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity. And you got to realize that people are putting themselves on the line by giving you a shot. So some of these folks, you know, you wouldn't even don't even have a website, you know, so how can I justify bringing folks in? And we got to do the basic things. So can you talk about some of the basic things in today that's so important to do just to give us ourselves to validate what we're doing in the marketplace?
For sure. So as you mentioned earlier, I do sit on the board for the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Small Business Development Center has been around since the 1980s, and they've been doing exactly the type of work that we're talking about here. No matter where you are on your entrepreneur journey, they can help you, and all the resources are free. Now, if you have low credit score, that is okay. They have resources out there such as Access Toledo that can help you improve your credit score and give you strategy in order to do so. You're also going to be able to develop your business plan, come up with a marketing strategy. If you're not comfortable going to the bank, guess what? They've been around for the 80s, and so they can help you to cultivate those relationships. To Craig's point, they have the relationships, and so they can introduce you to the key people in the neighborhood who are providing loans and grants and things like that that you might need for your business. Due to coronavirus, there's been a number of resources injected into enhancing the Small Business Development Center. They are still alive and active virtually, albeit, but they're still meeting with clients all the time, helping them get access to resources. They even have a new program called Reboot Initiative, where they're going to be helping businesses in terms of when they open back up, what that can look like in terms of technical assistance, social distancing techniques. Again, where is the money and the finances? They are throwing these resources just to help minority businesses and other businesses reach their goals through all this. So partner up. The resources are free. They're there at your disposal.
So, Ambry, are you really saying, because it sounds like this to me, there is money available to do things, but you gotta be on your game and ready to go get it?
100%. You can, if you have a bad credit score, that's okay. You just have to work on improving it. And they have programs to help you do so. They are going to want to see your financial projections. I mean, it's not a cakewalk. You do have to have your stuff together. They want to see, mostly it's 3 years of financials, profit and loss statements, balance sheets, tax returns, banking relationships. They want to see that you have cash on hand, to Jeffrey's point. So there's definitely going to be some legwork that you have to do. But if you're passionate about your business, it's worth doing.
Hey, Will, can I step in real quick?
Please.
As well, because even with the state, we're still getting requests for direct loans. And for those who are on the phone, we underwrite our own debt for equipment and real estate. I just got a request from Northeast Ohio today. We're still getting requests. So people are doing business. And when you think about certain businesses, even in this pandemic, we've got asphalt roofing and paving company that we approved for a loan to buy a 30,000 square foot building last week. They're still doing work because it's going on. And those resources are still out there. To Andrew's point, I think you can't get discouraged because you may have something negative. You've just got to know how to work through it. And that's what all of these organizations that she referred to and everyone else referred to are out there for, because you're not alone. That's the thing we also try to convey. Business owner, you're not the first one to have this issue. Let's show you how to work through it. And do you have the stomach to work through it to get there?
Thank you. And Kala, I think about my previous statement of when we came into this pandemic, we were already, stressed, from a global conversation of minority businesses, that access to capital and the things to thrive. What, from a banker's perspective, what is your position on making sure businesses who were at least relatively doing decent business can get over this hump, not knowing where the bottom is? But how can, as a banker, you provide either resources or guidance to help people figure out how do they get that bridge?
No, that's a great question, Will. And I do just want to say that everyone has nailed it about having the relationship, not being afraid to approach the bank. But one of the things that we've done at Fifth Third is that we kind of recognize that there is this fear of going to the bank. So we've developed in some of our markets community bankers, and their number one goal is to sit down with these small businesses and have the right conversations with them and build those relationships. So we're actually reaching out to the community and finding those individuals and making sure that we have those conversations. It was the same thing we did during PPP, that we used our community bankers to actually go and grab those non-for-profits, those smaller minority and women-owned businesses, and bring them to the bank because we knew from the beginning that they weren't going to come. The other piece that we've done, we've partnered with these CDFIs as well, particularly in Toledo and other areas here in Ohio, to make sure that we're sending people to those CDFIs for technical assistance and low-cost lending, in some cases grants. And we work with those CDFIs to get these individuals bank ready. So that's business and personal credit, as well as all the things that folks have mentioned about their tax returns and being in the right place to be bankable. Because it's not about, it's not around if you're going to be bankable in the future, it's now, right? And how do we actually prepare you for the future? When you look at capital that's out there, when we talk about access to capital, I think the biggest deficiency is access to information, because the information is not getting to folks for them to be able to prepare to go after the capital, right? So it's kind of a one, then two process. And so we've been really trying hard across our entire footprint to be able to do the reach out and not wait for folks to come into the bank.
And Craig, I think, from individuals, when COVID-19 hit, folks start to pull back on their spending. People aren't out obviously at the mall shopping anymore at all. But people start to hold their money tight when they get unsure about the future. And I'm interested in your take on, particularly like the Port Authority, when you have a pandemic like this, is organizations like yours saying we need to, not deploy any more capital to businesses, we need to hold on to this? Or do you get in a mode to say, look, we've got money in these accounts that we need to get out the door to be able to help businesses survive and thrive?
I think from the port, we take the stance that we are here to help businesses and not hold on. So, worked in banking when we had last recession back in 08, 09. So I certainly understand the pain that companies go through. And some institutions probably were hesitant to lend at that time. But in terms of the Port Authority, especially with our DCAP program and as well as with microlending, we are more than willing to lend out. I think Jeff made the comment that at the end of the day, it's cash flow, right? So can you repay? But I think now is the time more than ever that institutions need to be available to provide liquidity. I think there's an old saying goes for bankers that, customers say you don't want to lend me money when I do need it, and when I don't need it, So it's kind of turning that on its head and making sure that liquidity is available. Port Authority, whether it's DCAP, whether it's municipal bond fund, whether it's microlending, our doors are open. We understand that at this pandemic, and understand this is a tough time, right? So the number of businesses that we have now, how many are going to be on the back end? I think we want to be part of the solution to make sure that there are a lot of businesses have access to information and the capital to make sure that they can make it through on the other end.
Kalak, can you jump in on that? Because he had mentioned, like when you think about 2007, 2008, a lot of banks pulled back on deploying capital because the market had gone, haywire. What is the banking mentality now when you have a pandemic like this? It's like we need to get money in the hands of folks who need it.
Yeah, I think there's a huge need to get money in the hands of folks who need it right now, because when you think about a pandemic and what we're up against, it's much more than about economics at this point, right? It's about survival and making sure that we're able to come back strong after this. But I'm gonna piggyback on something that Craig has said, and it's one of my favorite quotes, and I think that's what Craig was saying. It's a Mark Twain quote, which is that the banker is the type of guy that hands you their umbrella when the sun is out and then ask for it back when it starts to rain, right? And so the idea is that going into any type of crisis like this, you have to have a strong relationship, but you want to do it in good times as well. Because what's going to happen, and I think Ambria mentioned this, is that it's going to come down to relationships, the relationships that you've had and that you've been able to build with the people. Because now it's based on, do I believe in you and do I believe in your business, right? And if we haven't built that relationship, it becomes extremely difficult. But I think in this specific crisis, and we're seeing money that's starting to pour in, particularly from the SBA with the PPP program, the Fed is putting some more money in as well. I think there is an opportunity for us as African-Americans, African-American businesses to get a piece of this pie, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And make sure that we're taking advantage of all these opportunities. I give you one last one that I tell people to do, that cash is tight right now, right? A lot of banks are offering payment deferral programs, right? If you're already at a bank, go to your bank and ask for the payment deferral. If you have an SBA loan, ask for the payment deferral. It's a 6-month deferral, right? So it's all this information that's out there to help us to retain cash, and it's just trying to get that out as quick as possible.
Yeah, very good. I want to kind of transition the conversation to what the future may look like for businesses. And Jeff, if you can turn your camera on. I'm very interested in, when the restaurants got shut down, folks couldn't go out anymore. All these restaurants who didn't have a web presence had to figure out how to get one real quick to be able to provide curbside service and et cetera. You were moving to a more touchless economy. In your mind, put on your futurist hat, for a second. What should we be preparing for with whatever the new normal? Because that old normal is not coming back, right? But there will be a new normal. what should businesses be preparing for, keeping in mind that we don't know what the bottom is and we don't know what it is, but just from your experience, like talk about what it.
Great question. I think it's two-pronged. One of the things that we came out of the gate with our business partners when this hit was trying to get them training on, if they didn't have an e-commerce presence established, to establish and then to build upon what they have. And that leads into the second point, which is the new paradigm on the other side of this is going to be more touchless retail. It's going to be less interaction. So using technology, what this to change how we've done things. Again, taking advantage of a crisis to turn it into an opportunity. When you come through on the other side, if you've got technology working to your benefit and you built a robust e-commerce platform, and you can do touchless retail, that's going to help you sustain a shock like this going forward. And that's what we're trying to do with our partners when we talk to them, is help them adjust to that new normal on this side so that when they come through, they're prepared for it.
Just sticking with you, Jeff, like how do you encourage folks who may have resisted innovation and technology and web presences and et cetera? What do you recommend, and anybody else can chime on this if you know of resources, what do you recommend for folks who have, maybe they're older, maybe they are just, not technologically apt? How do you encourage folks strategically to invest time and or just resources into innovating their businesses?
I think when they see their business numbers start to fall, and honestly, when you can present to them a way to absorb that shock, and then you have the conversation that it's not as intensive or as expensive as it once used to be. And more than that, it's much more efficient. It's just laying out the narrative so that they can see it, because a lot of times business owners are myopic. They're focused on their business, and our role and what we do, and most of the panelists here, is to open up that aperture so that they can see the other opportunities. A lot of times they haven't thought about it. But again, when your sales numbers and your revenues go down and you want something to kind of help support that, it's an easy argument after a while, particularly when you're going through the shock that they're going through now.
And Bree, I'd like you to chime in on this also, because I think about the type of mindset you have to thrive in an ecosystem like this. You were somebody who left a really good job to go and jump off, a cliff per se, and starting your own thing. And there's a different type of risk when you have that sort of job, and there's another type of risk when you are on your own. Can you talk about, for the folks who are out there, and to piggyback on what a couple of people mentioned, I've always loved this Rahm Emanuel quote that I heard him say after the 2007, 2008, when they got the Affordable Care Act through. He said, never let a great crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity to do things you otherwise couldn't have done. And so talk about the entrepreneurial mindset. There's a lot of people in this community who admire you and admire what you've accomplished. Talk about how you've been thinking about this through having the idea for your enterprise and being able to get to where you are.
Question. I have not had the success that we are experiencing today had I not reached out to every single resource available to me locally, statewide, and on the federal level. Sarah, actually, can you pull up my slide? They've been the key to my success. I take advantage of everything that is out there. I actually right away went to the Minority Business Development Center. I'm sorry, did I lose everybody? Can you guys see me?
Weird.
Is Sarah still on? Sarah, can you add my slide? Minority Business Development Center. I right away got hooked up with a professional in the construction industry who literally sat with me for 2 hours, and we went through everything. And I am so grateful for that time, but he literally told me the landscape of the city, who I needed to meet with, who I needed to talk to, how I should shape my business plan. And so that was my first stop. And then my second stop, I went to the small business development center, right? They've been around since the 80s. What programs are out there? How should I do this? What should I take advantage of? Then Jumpstart came to town. I did the same exact thing. Went to Jumpstart meetings, talked with a business counselor there. There's no way you can automatically come out knowing everything that is out there and available to you if you do not partner up and ask questions and find out who, what, when, and where. I immerse myself in the community and just being in the know. I guess in terms of moving forward for the future, you can't lose sight of that. I would say the same exact thing that helped me launch my business is the same exact thing that I would use for the future, and that is connect with the local free resources through these enterprises and partners. Continue to partner up. That's the only way that you can stay abreast to everything that is changing so rapidly and all the programs that are coming out so quickly, right? Today, we just got new word of the Emerge program offered by the, right? That's new. Like, you have to stay abreast. There's no way you can know on your own. You have to continue to partner up to figure out how you move forward in the future.
And I'll go ahead and give a couple of bullet points on this new Emerge grant that was announced today by the City of Toledo, which has established the Emergency Micro Enterprise Recovery Grant, Emerge, to aid in the economic recovery of micro enterprises negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a grant program, Jeff, talking about grants. This is a grant program to assist for-profit micro enterprises to maintain or restart operations and retain jobs by providing up to $5,000 for eligible operating expenses incurred between March 1st and June 30 this year. Priority will be given to businesses that didn't receive the relief funding from the Small Business Administration, and possibly based on the level of volume that we will get in applications, this may turn into a lottery. So just be mindful of that. Micro enterprise is defined, just so you know, if you're thinking, is this money something that I can get my hands on? This is defined as businesses, small scale businesses with 5 or fewer employees, including the owners. So for more information on that, go to toledo.oh.gov, toledo.oh.gov/EMR grant. And so I kind of want to throw this out to anybody who wants to touch on it, and I will gladly have anybody, because I think about, when you think about this, how they define micro enterprises, sometimes, when we get an idea for a business, we just start a business, and it may not be under the structure of, am I an actual employee of my business? Am I paying people under the table? Am I 1099ing people? Am I doing a lot of different things? But in too many instances, we're not properly set up to be able to go get PPP funding, to be able to get access to these dollars. I want to open this up to anybody who wants to chime in, which might be a dangerous thing to do depending on how this Zoom works on Facebook. But the importance of actually getting the business set up properly so that you can attack these opportunities.
Hey, Will, can I go back just to the Emerge grant program and PPP really quick, just to talk about that? So, because again, it's information. So the first round of PPP, the way it was set up was that self-employed individuals, independent contractors couldn't apply until seven days after it started. So that was April 10th. It started on April 3rd, it was April 10th. The money ran out less than 6 days after they were able to get in. So a lot of the folks we're talking about did not receive the funds. Today, though, is only about $183 billion, only $183 billion that's been dispersed. So there's still well over $120 billion that's still left, right? So I really, really encourage everyone that go get that money, right? It's there, it's forgivable. If you do all the things that the SBA asks you to do, there isn't a credit check. So if you go to a bank and they say your credit's bad or you need to run a credit report, they're wrong, go to another bank, because that's not correct, right? This is money that's out there to help you. This program with Emerge, I love, because the largest amount of small business, or the most small business we have in the country, are small businesses that are either 1 or 2 employees. Most of them are just 1 employee, right? It's your side hustle. It's how most of our businesses actually start. So these programs are outstanding, and I just have to plug them to say, please take advantage of them while they're still there before they expire at the end of June.
Hey, Will, I want to jump on that as well, because I think that's a good point to make. What a lot of people may not understand is that when the SBA put out their program, they define a small business as, I think, 500 or fewer employees. The SBA has done a study to show that most minority-owned businesses have around 5, but not more than 10 employees. So when you think about that, when you have a targeted grant program like this, it helps those really, really small businesses with their cash flow. And sometimes they're the ones who are left behind, but those are also the businesses that really, really drive our economy. So just to put that kind of relational kind of number out there, yeah, minority businesses are typically less than 5 people, and they need grant programs like this during this time to kind of help bridge some gaps.
Craig, can you kind of give an overview for folks who may not understand the difference between their personal credit and their business credit? This question did come in from the folks on the chat. So I'm interested in understanding for our community how to use their personal credit to be able to secure business credit and the like. Can you fill us in on that?
Sure. And so I'll kind of answer your first question and segue to that one in terms of businesses being properly set up. You know, I would typically tell folks, you know, who are interested in going to business, make sure you have a good banker, make sure you have a good accountant, and make sure you have a good lawyer. That's kind of the three-legged stool. So if you have a good lawyer or someone you can go to for some good legal advice, that person will be able to tell you how you should be structured. So proprietorship, LLC, partnership, there's different liability issues. So I think, once again, getting back to that good foundation, having that set up helps you or will prepare you for success to take advantage of certain opportunities down the road. As relates to personal versus business credit, the personal credit, most folks, you know, hear FICO score. What's my personal FICO score? That is a reflection of how well you pay your bills on time, level of debt you have against your income, a lot of different interesting things that go into this magic box that come up with a three-digit credit score for you personally. From a business perspective, you know, business credit score, and Dun & Bradstreet with DNB, which you may hear the initials, Equifax, Equifax Business, those institutions kind of measure how well as a business you are paying your bills, how well you are paying your vendors, if those items are being reported. That is very important, especially for banks, if they're pulling those DNB reports to see how well you're paying. I think Jeff mentioned, you know, in terms of certain metrics, that information is very key. A lot of times having good personal credit allows you to leverage to get good business credit, right? So that's the importance of making sure that you're going to, whether it's the financial opportunity centers or different other areas that can help you improve your personal credit score, that serves as leverage for you to get good business credit, right? And I guess it could be short-sighted or not, but if you pay your bills personally on time, I'm going to assume that as a business owner, you're going to pay those expenses and bills on time. So there is a correlation between the two. So that's why, once again, stressing that individuals, if you have some blemishes or issues with your credit score, don't be ashamed. Identify what they are, figure out how to fix them, so that way you can be successful on the business side.
And Kayla, what are some of the best tactics you've seen for folks in building that business credit score? What are actual things we can do?
Yeah, I think the first thing you need to do is use your business to buy supplies, right? So a lot of times with small businesses, particularly if they're sole proprietorships, they'll use their personal credit cards to actually buy things for the business. So the one thing you want to do is separate the two. So get a business credit card. So you have your personal credit card and a business credit card. Start buying things using that credit card, or even if you have a line of credit, you know, instead of using your own personal home equity loan or something like that, actually go and get a business loan, because you know, to Craig's point, there's a history, and we're going to look at both of them, right? You're going to look at your personal score and your business credit score. And a lot of times you'll have a great personal score, but your business doesn't have a history of actually applying for credit or using credit, even though your business might have been around for the last 10 years. So that's the most important thing, is just make sure that you're separating the two and trying to actually develop your own kind of business credit history as well.
Ambria, when you knew you were about to launch a business, how did your mindset shift to luxury spending and, you know, the types of things that you just did, you know, taking everybody out to eat and, you know, these. So when you knew you were going to go on this journey, what types of things did you do in your personal life to set you up for success here in business?
Well, it's sacrifice. You can't really live like you used before. You lived before, right? Because you want to, you're focused, you want to make the sacrifice. I want to mention this about starting a business as well. You really want to make sure that you're set up correctly in the start, to Craig and everyone else's point, because it's very difficult to kind of go back and change those things if you had a kind of shaky foundation to begin with. And so, for instance, you want to make sure you get registered through the state, right? Register your business through the state. You know, then you get your articles of incorporation, and then you get your operating agreement. And then you go to your banking institution. Look for community banks. I've had the most success with community banking. You look around your neighborhood that you live in, and whatever banks are there or credit unions are there, I would say that that's more than likely who you would need to partner with, because they have earmarked certain programs and things like that that are geared specifically to helping those in that community. And so they actually have quotas, and obviously the bankers on the line can speak more to this than I can. But those are the banking institutions that you probably will have the most success in, because they're vested in that particular community. And so make sure your business is set up correctly from the start. Like Kala said, make sure everything is separated. Because when you go to these banking institutions, they want to see a clear track record that's indicative of your business history. So if you have, they can tie it back and have record of that. More than likely, you'll be able to show that you are someone they would want to partner with and continue to see grow.
Very good. And I'm gonna start with Craig. I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, your Zoom was going out a little bit at the end there, so I wanted to make sure I didn't cut you off early. I want to start with Craig on this, but there's a question that came in and says, are there upcoming workshops or seminars, or should business owners just call offices? So like, what types of programming is the Port Authority perhaps doing, maybe virtually or otherwise, or can you direct us to programming that would be beneficial for folks listening to this? And I'm going to give this to a couple of different folks. I know Ambria may have comments on the chamber also.
Sure. So through the port itself, we don't have programming, but obviously if individuals have questions about our programs, they can contact me directly. And Ambria touched on this earlier, and I'll kind of reinforce it, is that a lot of the institutions here in Toledo are working together. So the Chamber of Commerce, the African American Chamber of Commerce, the Toledo Public Library, Jumpstart. I mean, there's a huge umbrella of organizations. And if you go to the Chamber's website, I think that's kind of the holding spot where you'll see a lot of information about upcoming training and webinars. To Kyla's point, information is key. And so a lot of these webinars are information about how to handle your company through a downturn. Psychologically, how do you handle yourself on the other side? So I will say for sure there is a wealth of training and information out there, depending on where you want to get it, to help you and your company get through this time.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get Artisha's question to a couple of different folks. And Ambria, if you want to chime in on this, I'm going to give it to Jeff and Kala also. But Ambria, can you talk about programs that may be available for folks to take advantage of during this moment?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I think as I already mentioned, PPP, definitely look into that because it's forgivable if you follow the SBA guidelines. The EIDL, which was a disaster loan, people were receiving $10,000 grants just in their account. Also here locally, we have programs through the partnerships that Craig just mentioned. They have loans available. Now the new Emerge, your banking institution, they have SBA loans, lines of credits, line of credit. I would definitely recommend that. Go to your banking institution, talk to your business advisors on what that can possibly look like. But banks are still out there lending and they want to see you guys succeed. and as well as all the community partners. And so there's monies available, there's opportunities out there, there's resources, and most of them are free.
What types of education is the chamber doing, Ambria?
So they have the Reboot Initiative along with their partners, such as Regional Growth Partners, LISC, as well as the University of Toledo, where they have expanded and extended their programs for small businesses. So they've increased the technical assistance portions. They're doing webinars, seminars. They're still meeting with people virtually, and they're just able to do more during this pandemic. And so they're there, the chamber is there, and they've expanded their resources.
And Jeff, I think a lot about businesses that may not be set up as MBEs, WBEs, and there's so many advantages. And I'd love you to talk about this and also talk about other certification programs. I've heard a lot about 8A certification. So can you talk about the benefits of being certified in a variety of these opportunities that may be available for folks? And can you describe some of those programs that may be lower hanging fruit for folks to take advantage of?
Yeah, no problem. I think just again, to make a comparison so people understand how unique Ohio is, there are only 19 states that have minority business development programs or set aside programs, 19 out of 50. We are the only state where our program is state funded. All the other states kind of cobble together a number of federal programs to accomplish the same thing. But the tangible benefit to being MBE certified in the state of Ohio is that you have access to a few programs. One is our direct loan program. I mentioned before, we underwrite real estate as well as equipment, real estate out to 15 years, equipment out to 10, at an interest rate that doesn't exceed 3%. You're not going to find that at a bank. You're not going to find that at other institutions. And that's specifically set aside for MBE companies. Additionally, as Ambria said, we provide surety bonding. A lot of construction or contractors, it's tough to get, large surety bonds, but we provided up to just over $1 million for our small contractors. And that's turned out to be incredibly helpful for them in bidding on jobs and getting work. Again, that is for people who are specifically MBE certified. Another resource that we have within our division, we have federal funds that help support a program called our Collateral Enhancement Program. And we use this program in conjunction with other banks or CDFIs, where if you're looking for a line of credit and they underwrite the debt and it works, but you're under collateralized, we actually have cash that we can put in the bank to help shore up that collateral. For example, if you have a $200,000 line of credit, but you only have $75,000 in collateral, if you are MBE certified, we will provide 50% of that loan amount in the form of cash to help support that. So now you're collateralized up to $175,000. That program is also available to majority-owned companies, except that percentage is just 30%. So we have tangible benefits to being MBE certified here in the state of Ohio. Additionally, being MBE certified allows you to participate in state set-aside contracts, which are up to 15% of spend for all agencies in the state. There's an EDGE certification as well, encouraging diversity, growth, and equity, which was put in place to help financially disadvantaged business owners. It also includes women in that. And they are typically, and there's going to be some changes in that program for the good, but that takes care of business owners who are struggling economically or come from disadvantaged areas that are not ethnic minorities. The state is also working towards getting a WBE certification. Hopefully that'll be out later this year. And then there's a veteran benefit, veterans VBE certification too. So all those things kind of play into part to kind of help our community move forward with business, not just doing business with the state, which can help build your capacity, but give you opportunities to other resources that I just stated. And Will, I'm also going to put into the chat, I come across information because of the role that I sit in. And I came across this last week. The state of North Carolina has a wonderful site where it breaks down resources that are available to their business partners. And then in the first section, it talks about national resources that are available to help people in terms of grants or other opportunities. I'm going to put that link here so people can look at that and have opportunity for that, because the other breakdown are just at the state, county, city level, local level, but the national resources are something that I think people would find interest here.
Yeah, and I want to make sure, I don't want to forget this at the end, is there's a wonderful conversation happening in the comments on Facebook. So people are dropping resources, contact information to all kinds of local resources in the comments section, and that stuff will not go away. So make sure if you're watching this and you are curious about what's available, and shout out to Bill Wursel also. I think all roads lead to Bill Wursel at the chamber. I've heard, his name in almost every conversation I've had about small business resources. So big shout out to Bill Wursel, who's an OG in this thing in the city of Toledo. So, but Kala, I'd like you to chime in on the importance of having certifications and which certifications matter.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out to the National Minority Supplier Development Council. I sit on their board, and so it's back to what Jeff was saying, that if you're a minority business and you're certified, there's a couple things you get. So there's access to capital, as Jeff just mentioned, but it also helps you to get access to contracts, right?
Facts.
A lot of these larger companies and even medium-sized companies, that if they're going to do business with you, they want to know that you've been certified. So either you're an MBE or a WBE. And then if you're certified and you're part of one of these councils, and I would tell you the Ohio Council is one of the best councils in the country, there's a really nice network, right? Because we can't all do this by ourselves. I think Amber had mentioned this. And so it gives you the opportunity to have conversations, real conversations with people who may be going through the same thing that you're going through, or maybe they went through it before, right? So I can't stress enough to join these organizations, be a part of the conversation, because what you put in, you will get so much more out of it just by being a part of this group. So,
Craig, I'd like you to chime in on that also, because Kala made a really great point, and it's actually even helped me in my business. Not every company is legally has to look for an MBE or et cetera, but it helps them when they can check a box and say that we're doing business with MBEs and WBEs. Can you talk about that from the course perspective?
Yeah, certainly. And this probably for our DCAP program, which has been around probably since 2010, specifically to help minority women-owned contractors, so a WBE or DBE or other designations. I mean, we have probably 45 participants. We've done over 100 projects, and we've been able to leverage our $600,000 revolving loan fund into $7.3 million of approved projects, right? And so we like to think those companies are being able to benefit from the construction boom and a lot of the work around Northwest Ohio. And to Kala's point, I mean, having that designation kind of opens the door when you have bigger general contractors who need to satisfy certain requirements, making sure that you're ready, you've got your designation, you've got your business plan, you got everything in order. That makes it that much easier for the port to help those companies out. So once again, it's important. And once again, there are free resources to help those companies get that designation. You can work with the city of Toledo, you can work with the state. I mean, it's free resources, right? That's you can't get any better than free 99 to help you out.
And Bria, you want to chime in on this?
Yes, I do. How'd you know? No, so I am an MBE certified company, and my MBE certification has been invaluable to the growth of my business. So like others mentioned, it lets larger companies and other potential partners know that you are serious about your business, you are a legit company, and you do things effectively and efficiently. And so it's allowed me to take advantage of the DCAP program, go down and talk to Jeff's team and get the surety bond, have access to contracts that I wouldn't have even known about had I not had the MBE certification. Now, the process is very labor intensive to go through, but again, it's been valuable and it's really contributed to the success of the company and the growth. And so I would say if you do not have an MBE, WBE, I'm so happy to know that the state is going to be getting a WBE for us. That would be great. I know Michigan has one and we haven't had one. So that would really enhance the program. Disadvantaged business, vet-owned businesses, get those certifications, please, because they will help you in your business growth.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get in trouble doing this, but there's so many great people in the comments on Facebook. I'm seeing people like Lisa Washington from ODOT, Mark Uridi from University of Toledo. And I'm seeing so many people who people need to know, the minority business impact from University of Toledo. There are people in these comments who, if you have questions on how to get access to resources, they're all in the comments and they're on this live also. But take advantage of the comment section right now because it's going down in that public DM. But Sarah, if you could, Jeff put a link in the comments that we can see. If you can make sure that link is on the public so everybody can get access to that link that Jeff put here, I would greatly appreciate it. So I kind of want to talk about, we've already kind of dug in this, but I want to take a different direction. Never let a great crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity to do things that you otherwise couldn't have done. And Bree, I will start with you because having a crisis like this, does it cause you to rethink things that you might have been spending time on that were not giving you, a return? How are you thinking about this as an entrepreneur on streamlining processes, automating things that you probably were spending too much time on, and fine-tuning things that probably needed a little bit tightened up?
100%. So through this, we've all been given the gift of time. And I've had a lot of chances to kind of do some introspection and figure out kind of how I can make my business better during this. And one word I keep coming up with is efficiency. What can I eliminate that was wasteful, right? And so for instance, we don't currently have a building. And so unfortunately, our tools and ladders and things like that get left at all different job sites. And then we lose it. And then we're at Home Depot or wherever, and we're buying another one just because we don't know where the other tool was. And it's just faster for us to buy new and start from there. And so it's just not efficient. And so now we're trying to purchase a building, right? We're trying to streamline those processes, although they don't necessarily equate to more money in the traditional sense, but they will be if we button up efficiencies. And so this has been a great opportunity for us to go back and look at our business plan, revisit marketing. In fact, I've been partnering with you and some others to button up my marketing strategy, increase my social media presence, website presence, and just do a better job amongst those things that I wasn't focusing on before. And so it's really allowed me an opportunity to step back and see, how can I make this better? How can I streamline? How can I fine tune? And then again, taking advantage of all those resources that if we play our cards right, we will end up better after this than we were going into it, because someone mentioned these resources weren't available to us before this happened. And now here they are right in front of our laps. And so we're taking advantage of everything, and we'll end up better on the other side as long as we survive.
As long as we survive.
As long as we survive.
Yeah, and I just know I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm seeing so many great people in the comments here. I see Roy Hodge from Jumpstart, who's also an entrepreneur and is doing really good work. So shout out to everybody at Jumpstart doing great work, helping companies who, in a lot of different ways, but also the ones I want to point out is companies who have historically not been, for lack of a better phrase, innovative. They are helping companies find ways to be more innovative in this new life. To Jeff's point, we're moving to a touchless economy and building e-commerce for if you have a restaurant and you're trying to figure out how to sell food via a website. It's very important to take advantage of the free resources that are available. So everything's happening in this comment section. So I encourage you guys to take advantage of that. I want to give panelists here an opportunity to kind of give their final thoughts on things that people should be taking advantage of, things that we should know about. Craig, I'm going to start with you because I want to make sure this audience knows, this is, about Black small businesses, but we're not just Black small businesses in the city of Toledo. And a lot of the things you're talking about and you have pointed out some that were specific to minorities, but the port has things that are available for small businesses across the board. So if you can, in your final thoughts, touch on things that may be available and just give your final thoughts in closing.
Yeah, so just talked a little earlier about a lot of the financing programs that we offer that are open to everyone, and from a grand scale, like I said, a bond fund that we do transactions typically, can do up to $5 to $10 million, right? So that's where we're financing, corporate headquarters, such as the Andersons, Owens Corning, where we're dealing with the capital markets. And then we get into some other programs, such as our SBA 504 program, which is financing for fixed assets. That's open to anyone. The State of Ohio 166 program, another fixed asset program. That interest rate is locked at 3%. And the SBA 504 interest rate is pretty attractive, as well as offering long-term financing. So the port kind of prides itself on offering those. I've mentioned DCAP. I've mentioned our partnership with ECDI from a microlending perspective. And then our development loan fund, we're working with different municipalities to kind of return loans and economic development in certain municipalities. In terms of closing thoughts, we talk about 2008, 2009, kind of the last recession. Surely looks like we're in the midst of one now. And I like the fact that there's a lot of resources being given, whether grants or loans, to kind of help businesses. I think the other side of the coin is making sure that the demand is there to help these businesses on the other side. And with that demand is becoming technologically advanced, doing a lot of things to make sure we kind of shore ourselves up. I certainly would like to see this momentum continue, that not only when we get through this recession, developing some revolving loan funds that just are there, right? Instead of having to cobble them together during an emergency, but having just more access to capital for businesses around town. That, if you look in Detroit, they're doing that in other cities. I think it's time for Toledo to have those type of resources available. But that notwithstanding, the Port Authority doors are always open to help entrepreneurs, and be more than happy to talk to anyone who needs help.
Thank you for that, Craig. Jeff, I'm going to go over to you, because I want to just get your final thoughts on if you can kind of include what we should be expecting to be and somewhat included in our new normal, just as best you can prepare us for the new reality.
Yeah, no problem. And I think tech support is going to screenshot. That's the site from North Carolina I brought up before. Those nationwide resources also include a number of grants. So please make sure that you check that out. And again, just having access to those things. They talk about, I think, the amount of money available as it goes down. It just gets into North Carolina specific stuff. But the national resources, I think, will be a good resource, is a good resource for everyone. I mentioned it before, Will, the new normal. There's definitely going to be a paradigm shift in the economy. Our business partners need to be prepared to take advantage of this. I think Ambria gave a great example, real life example of how she is trying to make her business more efficient. And I think that's what our small and minority businesses need to do as well. Now that you've got time to focus, if you can, and try to incorporate technology to move the agenda forward. I plan to, with our assistance center network around the state, hopefully have a presentation about this new normal and touchless retail, so that our retail business partners can understand what technology may be out there to help them. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think that as you can tell by what the governor has done with slowly opening up the economy, things are going to be different until they get a handle on this virus. But I think business can still go on if we're smart about it and we're ready to come out on the other side prepared to handle this new normal.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd love to get your final thoughts here.
Yeah, just a couple things. One of my favorite actors is Denzel Washington, and one of the things he said at his NAACP Image Award a couple years ago was that ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship, right? So I'm very optimistic on that. We're going to come out stronger from this. I think there's been a lot of learnings from here. I like to use this term called VUCA, that we live in this VUCA world. That's a volatile world, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? And in order to survive in this type of world, and we're feeling that right now, it's just being agile and innovative, collaborate, challenge the status quo, challenge your own thinking. Because the way you thought about something yesterday, significantly different tomorrow, and continue to push that. And then the last thing would be to be a sponge. I think Ambria talked about this as well, that you got to learn as much as you can, continuously improving your business and trying to figure out how to get better. I think this pandemic here is showing us that we can survive, we can be creative, and we can keep our businesses going. So again, I'm feeling optimistic and really looking forward to seeing everyone on the other side.
Thank you, Kala. And Bree, I'm going to leave it with you to provide some inspiration, things people need to do. What should I leave here on my to-do list with?
Absolutely. Sarah, can you pull up my second slide really quickly? This actually, I think, puts it together really nicely in a bow to the point of never let a good crisis go to waste. But Bishop T.D. Jakes, who's a great pastor, but also a great business mind, said, nobody likes hard times, but it's the unpleasant experiences that are often catalysts to build the character required for our destiny. Please, please, please use this time to level up. If you're not taking this opportunity to get involved virtually, albeit, but take advantage of the resources available to you to catapult you where you want to be, then shame on you, because we just gave so many great resources. The majority of them are free. So please take advantage and use this time to launch your business and get to where you want to be.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambria. So I said this at the start, I might have said it in the middle, but we came into, I'm talking about Black people specifically, we came into this pandemic already under pressure, and this exacerbated the pressure that many Black small businesses were under. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that this is a moment, to Ambria's point, if we take this seriously, then we have an opportunity to Kala's point, to come out way ahead. And so I think about that. I want people to be inspired by that. It is hard for a lot of people, and I want to be sensitive to, people are living all sorts of lives and going through things that may be very difficult. But if you can stay focused on taking advantage of this moment, in every crisis, somebody always comes out way ahead than they went in. So this is an opportunity for folks to be able to do that. So with that, I want to make sure, if you could pull up the slides here, I want to talk about 3 real quick things. That the Emerge program, the grant that was announced today from City of Toledo for micro enterprises to maintain or restart operations and retain jobs, up to $5,000. And again, micro enterprise defined as small scale businesses, for-profit businesses with 5 or fewer employees. You can get more information on that program at toledo.oh.gov/EMR grant. And so please, y'all should break that website tonight by just flooding it with your traffic. Second of all, I want to give you this slide for how to apply for the PPP program. And Kala mentioned that there's still money available in the bank for, there's still money that hasn't not been deployed by the federal government. So there is still money there for you to take advantage of if you did not get your bag already. So please call LISC. They have a website also, but or talk to your bank. And on your to-do list should be to introduce yourself to your banker. But this money is still available, so please take advantage of that opportunity. And lastly, I want to announce the program for next week with my friend Donnie Miller, who will be talking to my friend Dr. Tracy Watkins and Harriet Hardy and Barbara Boyd. And so Shop Talk is next week, and talking about coronavirus and the underlying health conditions in our community. So please join that for all the women. Men can watch too, but this one is directed at the women to have this conversation next week. So I invite you to join. Stay tuned to this Facebook page for more information on that. But I'm Will Lucas. It was a pleasure moderating this conversation. So thank you everybody on the panel, Kala, Jeff, and Bria, and Craig. Thank you guys so much. Peace.